And good morning and welcome to Cairns FM 89.1 and the Connect and Harmony program. I'm your host, Dave Chambers.
And I'm your host, Renee Cashman. And today we have Matt Savant joining us in the studio, who's going to help us achieve our goals that we've set for 2020. Welcome to the program, Matt.
Hello and thank you.
Now, Matt, most people, including myself, set goals at the start of every year, and within a few weeks or a month, they've totally given up or forgotten about them. Seems to me it always seems to work when it comes to drinking. Then the following year they do the same again, and they often find they're repeating the process over and over, and then they just give up setting goals altogether. Why do you think this happens?
You bring up a good point, Dave. Most people set goals and they do multiple things wrong. Firstly, they don't list them as if they've already achieved them. You've got to create that confusion in your mind. Every time you read the goal, if your goal is, I now only consume 2 alcoholic drinks a week, your mind, when you read it, says, no, you don't. You consume more than that. No, you don't. No, you don't. And after a while, it goes, oh, you're really consistent here. I'm going to start picking things out to help you. And so it picks things out of your reality to help you achieve your goals. So if your goal is to meditate, it'll say, oh, you've got 5 minutes this morning, go and meditate. And then you find you start doing it and you create habits. A lot of people have wishy-washy goals. What we focus on is 90% negative for an average person, negative in what we don't want. So somebody has too many bills, so their goal is, I don't want any bills. But you're actually focusing on the bills. What you focus on grows, so you actually attract more bills. Or when you do get the bills, you pay more attention to them and they have a bigger weight in your mind. Then people go, well, I want enough money to pay my bills. So my goal is, I now have enough money to pay my bills. But you're still focusing on paying the bills. I now have an abundance of money. I can pay everything at the time it arrives, and I have a surplus left over to save for my holiday overseas or da-da-da-da-da. So there's quite a lot involved in it.
Now that sounds very interesting, Matt, and I, like many others, have a goal that I'd like to lose weight. So, and I've observed that I have what I recognize as a negative and a positive drive. So the positive drive is me thinking, okay, I'm going to be healthier and fitter. I can imagine myself going through like my karate practice and I move with grace. And then the negative drive side is just simply saying, oh, you're fat and ugly. Now, how do these positive and negative drives affect our ability to achieve our goals?
That's a good question, Renee. People often have a goal and it doesn't align up with the rest of their life. If you have a goal to go overseas mid-year for a month, but you've just started a new business, well, you can't leave your business without a manager. A couple of months isn't time to get a manager together. So we have to make sure our goals align. There are 2 parts to your mind, and I'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. And the 2 parts of your mind can pull one way or the other. So that's an important thing to understand. And that's one of the things that we work on in the clinic, is getting the understanding of the different parts of the mind and helping you to address the part that's resisting you making the changes you desire.
So is there any difference? Does it make any difference? Can I keep telling myself I'm fat and ugly? Is that going to help me to achieve my weight loss goal? Or do I put more attention into the positive visualization of me being fit and healthy? Like, how does that push and pull between feeling good about yourself and going for your goal, or feeling like crap about yourself to motivate yourself for that goal?
So if you've got a subconscious belief that you're fat and ugly, basically whatever you do consciously that's the opposite to that, your subconscious is way more powerful. So you need to deal with that subconscious belief.
So I either subconsciously think I'm fat and ugly, or I subconsciously think I'm fit and healthy.
Depending on your programming from life.
And how do I know what I really subconsciously think about myself?
We can help you understand that through hypnosis. So to get to the subconscious, we've got to get the conscious mind out of the way. And that's what hypnotherapy is. So then once we're in that state, you have access to so much more of your mind. Belief systems that are formed, things that have happened that have had an effect on you. Let's say you started training one day and you started running and you twisted your ankle. Primary directive as a human is to avoid pain. So that was a traumatic event to you. So now every time you think about exercising, the old subconscious goes, don't do that, you're going to get hurt. So to protect you from being hurt, it sabotages your efforts to be fit and healthy. And it thinks it's looking after you. The only thing it's concerned about is your survival. It hasn't got any concern about whether you're fit, whether you've got friends, what sort of house you live in, what sort of car you drive. It's only about your survival.
All right there. Well, I reckon Renee was pretty brave, because I would never say to Renee, "You're fat and ugly." I'd get beaten up.
You would indeed.
But I suppose the point here, Matt, is how do we create workable and efficient goals that we can achieve?
That's another good question, Dave. We work on an acronym and it's called SMART goals. Now there's 5 elements. The first one is S for specific. Now your goal needs to be specific. M for measurable, A for achievable, realistic whilst ambitious, R for relevant. How does it relate to your overall plans, all your other goals, your lifestyle? And it has to be time-based. So if we break those down, you work through each goal and you build the goal so you know exactly when it needs to be accomplished, what needs to be done to accomplish it, and how you know you'll be successful. So that's the specific part. Measurable. How are you going to know that you're achieving your goal? What's going to be the defining point? So if you want to buy a new car, you get your new car. All right. It might be that you want to meditate. How do you know? I meditate at least 4 times a week. Then you know if you're meditating 4 times a week. And that helps you to break it down into smaller steps. For instance, go to your calendar and put a little cross on the mornings that you plan to meditate.
So, yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? So don't just be wishy-washy about making some goal. Actually set specific goals and that you can measure and monitor for your own achievement of them.
That's right. That's right. And then if we get to A for achievable, if you're always achieving 100% of your goals, you're not being realistic enough. You're not stretching yourself. So we need some stretch goals, or what we call moonshot goals. Things that are just beyond your reach that if you make the right amount of effort, you're going to achieve.
Have you got a moonshot goal, Matt? What's an example?
We want to go camping, and we've got a goal to go camping at least 6 times a week, 6 times a year.
6 times a week?
6 times a year.
Yes.
For 4 to 5 days. So that's one of our goals for our... We still have a goal to have our month off, but we want that many camping trips a year.
Excellent example.
And then when we get to R, it has to be relevant. If it doesn't line up with your purpose, then you're going to fail. So, and when you have multiple goals, do they all align? All right. So, as I said before, a guy who had a business and he's only started his business up, but he wants to go touring around the top of Australia in 3 months. His business is going to collapse while he's away. So you've got to make sure your goals align, or else you end up with nothing. And are they adding value? Are they adding value to yourself, and are they adding value to others, or are they diminishing that value? So if your goals are adding value, it's a much more heartfelt thing to achieve those goals. If they're diminishing value, especially in others, if your goals are diminishing others, then it's just human nature, you're going to self-sabotage. And time. Does your goal have to be completed by a date or a time? So I now have bought a brand new red Jeep by the 15th of February 2020. And then you break it down. What are you going to do to get that? Well, how much deposit do I need? You go and talk to someone about a loan. You find out the next step. You find out what you have to have for a savings plan. How high does your income have to be? And then you start doing the smaller steps, and that goal just happens.
Well, that sounds exciting. Often when we make goals too, it requires us to make some changes in our lives, and it can be hard to make life changes. And as Albert Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So how can we go about creating this change of consciousness?
So Albert Einstein, when he said, he was describing consciousness, and you're correct in what he said, that is word for word, but he described consciousness as what you experience within yourself, your thoughts and your feelings that are separate from the rest. So that's that ability to observe ourselves. And he called this a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is like a prison for us, restricting what we see and notice. So in previous episodes, I've spoken about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. So our conscious mind can only handle about 7 tasks a minute and the associated information. Subconscious gets in between 2 and 11 million bits of information in per minute. So if you think about looking at your lawn, that you see millions of blades of grass, so you get a lot of information. If all that came to your conscious awareness, that poor little conscious mind would go up in smoke. It couldn't handle the data. So in between we have a filter called a RAS. Now a RAS is such a definitive thing for our goals. Our RAS filters out things we're interested in and things that reinforce our previously held beliefs. So if you have a goal to buy a new red Jeep and it's worded right and you read it regularly, your RAS goes, hey, there's a Jeep, oh look, there's a Jeep for sale. You're about to get pizza one night and your RAS goes, oi, let's have 2-minute noodles and save $30 towards the Jeep. And it helps you to get the steps. Your RAS basically creates your world. Right? So what is brought to your conscious awareness is your reality, your perception and your world, your consciousness, as Albert Einstein said. Now we also have a subconscious. So he was only referring to the conscious part. Now when you've got a problem and you're aware of the problem, you know, if you know the workings of it, you're aware of it, you're conscious of it. If you keep self-sabotaging and you don't know why, that's a subconscious thing.
So does that mean my weight loss goal, my RAS keeps picking out all the chocolate mud cake? Is there something wrong there with my subconscious?
It comes down to wording. So when, as I said, 90% of what we do say and we hear is what we don't want or are negative. So if you go on a diet and you go, I'm not having any cake, there's a series of words that our mind negates. They're called negation words. Don't, not, never, wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't, can't. So if I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, you think of a pink elephant and you try to don't it. We can't don't it, so our mind deletes it. Say to a child, don't run across the road. Picture running across the road, they try to don't it. They're left with the picture, they go and do what the picture says. I'm on a diet, I'm not eating any cake. And whether you want something or you don't want something, your RAS goes, oh, there it is. There it is. Cake, 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 cake.
Cake.
And it picks it out for you. And it's almost, people feel like they're going crazy. I'm going on a diet and suddenly all the things I'm not allowed to have are fully highlighted all around the shop.
And you want them more than before.
Yep.
So it's the way that you've worded your goal.
It is. Yes.
Yes.
And we always pursue that what we're not allowed to have.
So instead I should be thinking, man, I can't wait to eat more celery.
Or if you see a cake and you notice it, toxic, poisonous crap, I'm going to look for something that's healthy.
Awesome. Thank you for those tips, Matt.
Well, Matt, you've sort of scared me a bit, because like you've told me cake is toxic, and I don't believe that. But could you tell me more about this RAS and the subconscious mind?
Sure, Dave. So my mindset, for me, cake is toxic. I avoid gluten. So that's my own belief system. I'm not forcing it on anyone else. If you like cake, that's good, in moderation. So when we talk about our RAS gets programmed by our upbringing, our parents. We can learn up to 85% of our life skills by the age of 6 or 7. So we mimic our parents. If your father might have told your mother she's fat and ugly, well, girls mimic their mum. So they can grow up with that belief. Just overhearing it, because it's traumatic hearing your mum spoken to like that, you can take on that belief system. Not always, but we see a lot of that sort of thing. It's also programmed by experiences, life in general, and particularly traumatic events, or perceived trauma. Now, a good explanation of your subconscious versus your conscious mind. I'd like you to imagine that you have a mind, and the mind is like a pond. You can't see through the water, and sitting on top of the pond is a rubber duck. The rubber duck, you can observe, that's your conscious mind. That's what you're aware of. Whatever's in the water, under the water, you cannot see. That's your subconscious. Now you have a goal to get the rubber ducky to the other side of the pond. So you might try and blow on it, and you might try and push it with a stick. But in the water, there's a current. Now that current is what we'd call a subconscious belief. and you starts on its journey, and then suddenly it goes in the wrong direction, and you try different things and you get frustrated. In the end, you give up. Now, the rubber ducky to the other side of the pond is your goal, but your subconscious beliefs are self-sabotaging you. So if you want to get that rubber ducky to the other side of the pond, achieve your goal, you need to deal with the subconscious beliefs. If you deal with those subconscious beliefs, then your subconscious and your conscious mind are working towards your goal, and anything is possible.
I love it. That was so well explained and so clear to visualize and understand how we can not be achieving the goals.
So, Matt, like my goal is to get my rubber ducky to the end of the pond. So I know what my goal is and I've written it out. How do I get it there?
When we've written the goal and we've got it worded properly, we review the goal regularly. So for the first couple of weeks, you could read it every day. It might be a morning ritual and an evening ritual. And what it's doing is bringing it to the forefront of your mind. What happens is every time you review and reread the goal, it actually creates a conflict in your mind. I have now achieved X. I've got the rubber ducky across the pond. And part of your mind says, no, you haven't. And after a while of reviewing it, he or she's really, really keen about this. Okay, what can I pick out to help you? What can I do to help you achieve that goal? And it might be something simple. I had a simple goal recently. I needed a plough disc for the top of my fire pit. And I went up to a mate's property to pick up some stuff. And I looked around and there's this thing that looked like a plough disc. And I said, what's that? He says, rubbish. So can I have it? I said, sure. And it was a big cast iron base off a outdoor table. Better than a plough disc. But my mind had been working away on that in the background because I'd set the intent of getting a plough disc. I opened my phone one day and there on Gumtree was a plough disc. Now, if I hadn't set that intent, my RAS wouldn't have been programmed.
Yeah, so you set the intent, and your RAS, like you said, it picks things out. So it highlights, oh, there's a plough disc, or there's a thing that could work better than.
Yep, exactly. And you've got to keep reviewing your goals. So we have a process where for 2 weeks, every morning and night, we reread our goals. So first thing in the morning when you wake up, you're in a certain state. Last thing in the evening when you're about to go to bed. Now, I've had examples where I've sat down and read my goals at night for something I've wanted, and I've woken up in the morning and I've remembered where I've seen one because my mind's been working on it overnight. So when we do it the right way, focusing on what we do want as if we've already achieved it, then things just seem to, it's almost like magic. Things just fall into place. Those things are always there. It's just that your RAS isn't allowing them to be part of your reality. When your RAS gets programmed for what you want, your RAS starts going, there it is. And it actually, that's what forms your reality, your RAS. That's why two people can look at an event and have two different descriptions of what happened at the event based on their upbringing, their circumstances. So when we get our RAS on board, anything is possible.
Well, thanks for that, Matt. Coming up after the break, we'll be talking more with Matt about hypnotherapy. So stay tuned to Cairns FM 89.1.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Connect in Harmony program on Cairns FM 89.1. I'm your host, Renee Cashman.
And I'm Dave Chambers, and we're talking to hypnotherapist Matt Savant. Now, Matt, how can hypnotherapy help us achieve our goals?
So often people, they fail to understand goals. Often when they've got to list their goals, there's a process involved. And if you have no understanding of the process, so someone who's experienced with goals can help elicit what you really want, what it means to you. Now, sometimes people often fear success as much as they fear failure. So sometimes we avoid failure. A lot of the time we avoid success, because if we're successful, it means we need to change. So do you get nervous thinking about achieving your goals? Why is that? Do you want to achieve this goal? What is about it? And it's always the feeling we get from it. So feelings and emotions. So that's the motivation. That's the push inspiring you to take action. So what's the feeling that achieving this goal will give you? And then we anchor that feeling back so that every time you think about the goal, that feeling's coming up as if you've already achieved it. And it builds the desire and the want and the motivation. You wake up in the morning and you can't wait to get started on your next endeavor or your next step. how will my life change if I achieve this goal? How will it affect those around me? Right? What will happen if I don't achieve this goal? So often looking at the negative side of it and thinking about what will happen if I don't achieve it. Okay, so I want to buy a house. I'm tired of renting. My goal is to save a deposit and buy a house. What will happen if I don't? Well, I'm tired of the real estate coming through every 3 months and doing their inspection. I'm upset with the fact that they can give me a month's notice to move out, and I'd like a dog and I can't have a dog. So those are the negative side of things. Then from that we draw on the positives. Security, you're paying your own house off. Over time the repayments are less than rent. And then when we tie into why you really want it and we connect it all together, that's the push, the feeling you get. What are the benefits from achieving the goal? Some people can see it and they fail to understand why it isn't happening. Why am I self-sabotaging? Some people, they fear that success, or they have a program and they self-sabotage. They go to a party and they're right, I'm going to eat healthy food, only eating healthy food, and out comes the cake and they eat half of it. And now they've got a bellyache and they're feeling sick, and in the morning they're thinking about more cake. So if we have a self-sabotage or bad programming, using hypnotherapy, we can help you to remove that programming. Now, when our conscious mind starts doing something, when we've done it often enough, our subconscious takes it over as a habit. It can be 1,000 times more powerful than willpower. Anyone who's quit smoking knows how hard it is just using willpower. So when we change the habit through hypnosis, remove the old habit, remove the triggers that cause it to happen, and install the new habit, and by running over it over and over again in your mind in a session, it's as if you've already done it for a long period of time. And that reinforces a new habit. So now the new habit's really strong and the old habit's gone, has no power and no triggers. If you have set the same goal multiple times in the past and you haven't achieved it, most likely you've got a subconscious habit or belief or program that's holding you back.
So what should you do? Yeah, I mean, okay, you can go and look at that self-sabotaging habit and use hypnotherapy as an example to find it. Or you could just say, that never works, I'm going to do a different goal.
If you've got a flat tyre in your car, it doesn't matter how many times you walk out and look at it, it's still a flat tyre. You've got to take action, right? Yep. You've got to take action and you've got to make steps. Our goals are a way of defining what actions we're going to take. There's a quote that goes back a long time, and it actually says, the world steps aside to let any man pass if he knows where he's going. And the way to know where you're going is to set goals. There's another quote that says, people who fail to plan to fail. So in life, in any business, we have KPIs. And that's figures we use to map how we're going against our budgets. Budgets are goals. So you need to have a set of standards. Okay, how do you know you're achieving your goal? Okay, I meditate 4 times a week. When you get towards the end of the week and you've only meditated twice and there's only 2 days left, it's really a no-brainer. You need to meditate either twice a day or both days. When we can have a goal and we've really set it in cement and we've rehearsed it by going over it and over again, when we're not doing it, our Raz says, oi, what's going on?
Is there any consequences of, like you're saying, what came to mind then is self-punishment? Like punishing yourself. Say those 2 days of meditating went past and you still didn't meditate. Is there any benefits to like punishing yourself for not doing those things?
If you perceive pain or being cast out of a social group, often when we're growing, sometimes we leave friends behind, sometimes family tries to hold us back, because if we change, the people around us need to change as well. Sometimes it's like that clawing action, trying to climb to the top. If we do it the right way, we can actually assist the others to move forwards with us. When we want something, and we want it badly enough, and we've got the right emotion and drive and feelings behind it, anything is possible. If we're stopping or we're failing or things are coming in that are distracting us and we're getting off the path and we're not getting back on the path, there's some sort of sabotage going on. Now, let's say when you were young, you got in trouble and your mum said to you, you never finish anything, when she was yelling at you or gave you a smack. That can be traumatic. What someone says to you can go in as a post-hypnotic suggestion. So if that's triggered, so you've started something and you know you've got to finish it, but you've got a post-hypnotic suggestion that you never finish anything, then that's a subconscious belief. That is way more powerful than your conscious mind. So that's what I mean by subconscious belief. So it can be anything our parents have said to us, others have said to us, things people have said. We've spoken about in the early event where a girl is laying in bed in the fetal position. She finds out her boyfriend's cheated on her with a best friend. Quite a traumatic thing. Her conscious mind shut down, her subconscious has taken over. Anything she says to herself or anything that anyone else says to her or even things she thinks can go in as post-hypnotic suggestion. So if she says, oh, all men are not very nice, I'll never find a decent guy. Months later, she's feeling better. She's at a party. There's 9 decent guys and 1 not very nice one. Guess which one her Raz picks out to reinforce that previously held belief. So if you're doing something and you've told yourself you're incapable, you don't deserve it, maybe parents told you off that, oh, you're never good, so you'll never get anything in life. And parents often slip up and say something like that. But sometimes a lot of the time, that goes in as a suggestion, and then you're unable to achieve things. You always start things and get stuck.
So we all have these sabotaging patterns. That none of us are free from them.
Look, I think everyone has some form of sabotage. It just depends on how much it affects your life. If you have a self-sabotage system about cleaning your teeth and your teeth rot, that's pretty bad. If you have a self-sabotage system about mopping the floor and you rarely ever mop the floor, it's not a big deal. But it just depends on how it affects your life.
So what I'm sort of getting here, Matt, is that the hypnotherapy script or process sort of changes everything into those positive attributes. Like the goal becomes it's achievable, it's congruent, and all those things. So the actual process of hypnotherapy changes all those negative and subconsciously bad things into something that is like a positive format. So the hypnotherapist is by way sort of guiding you towards that goal in a format that should work.
In a way, that's correct, Dave. If you imagine that your mind is a brand new computer when you're born, brand new laptop, and you log onto your internet server and you download your emails, and you manage to unfortunately download a virus. Now your computer's not doing what you want it to. Is it broken?
No.
So a virus is a program that someone else has written to make your computer do what they want it to do instead of what you want it to.
Okay.
So it's operating perfectly based on its operating system. But it's not doing what you want it to do, and it's your computer. So think of self-sabotage or a bad program as something that's come in from our parents, from our environment, or an assumption we've made in a traumatic event or a perceived traumatic event that has loaded a program that's not conducive to the life we want to lead. So if you get your computer and you get the IT guy out and he removes the virus, your computer goes back to its good operating system. So if we remove the bad programming, you revert back to a good operating system. So I don't believe anyone's broken or damaged or needs fixing. I think everyone is operating perfectly based on what's been done to them and the assumptions their mind's made. When they have a problem is when those assumptions are failing to direct them in the direction they want to go. So it's affecting their life in a negative way. By removing the old programs, people reset. Right? So they've still got all their characteristics, they've still got their personality and everything like that. It's just that we've removed the self-sabotage. Now then, if we add some new programming, so you love to exercise, you make healthy food choices, you get up and meditate every day, you read your goals, then you've reinforced the old computer with some new, more powerful programming, so that it's been customized to direct them to the things that they want to achieve.
Well, thanks for that, Matt. That is really interesting. Stay tuned to Cairns FM 89.1 and we'll be sharing Matt's contact details after the break. And welcome back to Cairns FM 89.1 and the Connect in Harmony program. I'm your host, Dave Chambers.
And I'm your host, Renee Cashman, and today we've been talking with Matt Savant from Helping Hand Hypnotherapy. Now, Matt, if people would like to contact you, how can they?
So to contact us at Helping Hand Hypnotherapy, we've got our website, which is helpinghandhypnotherapy.com. We've got our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We've got some good videos up on YouTube. And our phone number is 0438 717 413.
And if you'd like to learn more about how hypnotherapy can help you achieve your goals in 2020, then pick up the latest edition of the Connect magazine, which you can find at all good health food stores and cafes across Cairns and the Tablelands and all across North Queensland, actually. Stay tuned. Coming up next is our gratitude segment.
And welcome back to Cairns FM 89.1 and the Connect in Harmony program. I'm your host, Dave Chambers, and of course it's our gratitude segment. So, Matt, how is it important to have an attitude of gratitude?
Gratitude is such an underrated thing. Gratitude is so powerful, monks meditate on it for decades. They know the secret. Gratitude releases chemicals in the body and the brain that over time can actually change our physical makeup. There's a lot of evidence that it can actually change our genes by turning some on and others off, which can lead to more positivity, happiness, and a healthier life. Gratitude also programs our RAS to bring to our conscious mind more things to be positive about. As we know, what you focus on grows. So if you focus on positivity, you're going to notice more positivity. And this can be things such as people doing nice or good things, etc. And this can change our worldview. Instead of viewing the world as being a hostile place with no opportunities for me, over time it converts so that it becomes a friendly place with lots of opportunities. These opportunities can be used to help me achieve my goals, the connections I make, the things I notice. If you're ever in a room with someone and you don't particularly like them, if you focus on one thing you admire about them, the way you speak to them, your body, everything changes. So just being grateful for that one little thing they can do, something you admire, changes your whole viewpoint of a person. Gratitude is such an underrated thing. We need more of it in the world.
That's what we think, and that's why we always have this gratitude segment at the end of our show, Matt. So let's keep programming our RAS to pick out all the good things. Do you want to share some specific things that you're grateful for?
It might seem like a really little thing, but there's 7.5 billion plus people in the world. A third of those don't have clean drinking water every day. There's mothers who every time they give their kid some water, the kid could die of diarrhea and dysentery and these things. In Cairns, I think we've got the second best tap water in the world. And you turn on the other tap and you've got hot water. So every time you have a shower, be grateful for the clean, healthy, fresh, safe water. It just changes your shower.
Thanks, Matt. That's good to be reminded of the basic things that we take for granted that many others don't have. And we take it for granted. And just, we should be grateful for such wonderful things.
It is called the lucky country for a reason.
And Dave, what would you like to program your RAS to pick more positive things out on?
Well, actually, it was interesting. Like Matt was talking about how people start treating you better. And I've noticed sort of since Christmas, like before Christmas, people weren't, I was having sort of difficulties, like sort of dealing with people, sorting situations. But since Christmas, people are not like nicer to me now. So it's like they're working, things are working more my way. So it's actually quite good. And I'm finding it easier to be nice to people as well. So,
Is that why they're being nicer to you? Because you're actually being nicer to them?
Oh, maybe. No, I'm nice to everybody, but maybe they just understand my jokes better. Yeah.
So that's what you're grateful for. People have been treating you nicely.
Yeah. What about you, Renee? What do you like to express gratitude for this week?
Well, let's see. This week, look, I'm grateful for my new shoes I got given. I'm grateful for... You know what's really been blowing me out is at home, the trees being laden with fruit. I just look at them and I just think, wow, look how full of abundance nature is. And like I'm watching this mango tree, and we've got custard apple trees, we've got lychee trees, we've just got sapote trees, all these trees full with fruit. And every time I look at them, I just feel so abundant. And also just observing that the tree doesn't ripen all the mangoes at once. You know, you can go and pick a selection off, and then there's still green ones there. And next week you can pick some more off. And it keeps feeding the whole community. The horses are eating them, the birds are eating them, the bats are eating them, the wallabies are eating them, the pigs are eating them. It's feeding the whole community constantly. And I must just be grateful for the fruit trees.
Oh, sounds good. And shoes without soles.
Yeah, shoes without soles. They're just perfect for me, aren't they?
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, well, Matt, thank you for joining us and helping us to achieve our goals in 2020, get specific with them, word them right, program our RAS, and also to know that we can come and get hypnotherapy to help our sabotage programs that all of us must carry to some level or another. So thank you for joining us, Matt. It's been really enlightening.
Thanks, Renee. It's always lovely to come in, and it's always a good laugh. I don't know about Dave's jokes, but might buy him a joke book for his birthday.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. And check it out on SoundCloud later today. Thanks again.